In today's Whiteboard Leadership moment, I want to talk to you about the growth maturity pathway, but I want to get personal with it. A lot of times we're very good at talking about the steps along the maturity pathway. If you look back at a previous Whiteboard Leadership moment, you know I talk about the four parts of maturity. Come is about the weekend environment. It's about growing in your walk with God and coming to God and coming to church. And then grow is about small groups. Typically, that's the environment we talk about that. And then serve is the ministry environment, and go is being out there in the community and around the world. And so we talk about this in the context of the church environments. But what I want to do is take this same concept and make it personal, move it to the individual, and use the same words. Because a lot of times what happens is we want people to be engaged in ministry, and they feel we want something from them, but using the same words to talk about their personal walk with Christ and their personal growth means we want something not just from them, we want something for them, and it gives the context for all these things. We don't want them just to practice these things or do these things. We don't want them just to run these things. We want them to live these things. And so recently at a church, I was having this conversation with a bunch of volunteers, and I said, here's what your leadership wants for you. And I took the same process they have for the maturity pathway, and I put, well, what does this look like personally for each person? So let me just go through this, and hopefully it'll make sense to you. Again, come is about weekend services, grow is about groups, serve is ministry, and go is about outreach into the world. But on a personal level, come is about this, making room for God to work in your heart. It's not just about inviting people to the worship service. It's not just about coming to church. It's about coming to God with all your needs, all your desires, all your wants, all your frailty, all your strengths, and surrendering yourself to God and making sure that your life is fueled by a personal, vibrant relationship with Jesus. That ministry that overflows out of you comes from that personal walk, from that abiding in Jesus. And what I want for you is to have this personal, intimate relationship with Him. And very often when I talk about this, I'll talk about how important it is to have a method to give God space in your life to work. When I talk about space, I talk about, when you look at a passage of Scripture, you ask S, are there sins to confess? P, are there promises to claim? A, are there actions to take or avoid? C, are there commands to obey? And E, are there examples to follow? And this gives God space to work, and I'll talk about that at this level. The second one, though, is grow. We want them to come to God. We want to make room for God. I also want to make room for relationships. The Christian life is a relational continuum. We grow as iron sharpens iron, Proverbs 27:17. So one one woman sharpens another. We want to make sure that we grow in relationships, that there's people who know us well and love us anyway, people who are willing to speak into our lives, and we give them permission and listen to them. And I know in the past I've talked about this idea of SOAP, S-O-A-P, and when we have relationships and I'm trying to go deep, I talk about Scripture. S is for Scripture. What Scripture is changing your life? What is God teaching you from His Word? O is for outreach. Who are you reaching out to? A is for accountability questions, and maybe in your relationship with your wife or husband, and your relationship with your kids or with your coworkers. We don't know. And then P is for prayer. How can I pray for you? But the idea behind growth is what I want you to make room for relationships. I want people to be able to speak into your life, to encourage you, to challenge you, and that you'll listen to them and grow as iron sharpens iron. The third focus is on serve, and we talked about ministry environments, and this goes that direction as well, but we're really talking about the mastery of your environment, the mastery of your skills and abilities, growing in your ability to teach or to preach or to evangelize or to pray or to serve in some way. What are you doing to actually grow? What you're going to find out is that as the church grows, your skills have to grow with the church in order to stay at the level of leadership that you have. And so you've got to learn how to grow, learn how to change, find people who are ahead of you, be humble, and let them speak into you. And then finally, this is one of the hardest challenges of people inside the church. It's the go challenge, because we have all these great relationships inside the church, but we also need to make room for outsiders, make room for God, make room for relationships with Christians, make room for personal growth, make room for outsiders. A whole lot of Christians are kind of like Legos, and they have all these little places on top where you can insert other Legos, and yet in the relational realm, a lot of Christians have no open spots on the top of their Lego. They're all taken by Christian relationships. But the challenge of the Christian life is this: we exist for those who aren't here yet. We exist to make disciples of all nations. We exist to reach our communities, to reach our neighborhoods, to reach our workplaces. And so we've got to find room and allow outsiders to come in. I know a whole lot of people that are really excited about their church, and they'll use this phrase, I have a very friendly church. Well, just so you know, outsiders aren't looking for a friendly church. They're looking for friends. And we've got to make room for outsiders to come in and be a part of our circle. So make room for God, make room for relationships, make room for growth, make room for outsiders. This is what we want for our volunteers. This is what we want for people who are growing in our maturity pathway. This has been a Converge Whiteboard Leadership Moment. To learn more about Converge or to join us, check out converge.org.